For Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated, I'm Brendan Gulick alongside Andrew Lind as the Ohio State Buckeyes have yet another first-round draft pick, the 85th all-time first-round draft pick in Ohio State football history. It is quarterback Justin Fields. And Andrew, it might be to a place that we didn't necessarily expect. Fields just slips outside the top 10. The Chicago Bears trade up to number 11, and they take Fields. I think this is a really interesting situation because I don't think there's going to be a ton of pressure for Fields to play right away with Andy Dalton coming into Chicago with Nick Foles still on the roster. Fields has a chance to learn from some guys that have been around the league for a long time. That said, the pressure to win in Chicago with this current coaching staff and front office staff, I think, is there. And so there could come a point this season where I think Fields might have to get on the field if they're not winning games without him out there. But anyways, I think this is kind of an interesting spot for him to be drafted.
Yeah, it's really interesting, too, because of how much the Bears gave up to get him. You know, it was this year's first, I believe, a first next year, a fourth this year, and a fifth next year. So to give up all that, you kind of are hoping that he doesn't have to come in right away, that you're terrible, and then just give up another great pick next year. You want to at least be able to get something out of those veterans. But for him to come into a situation where he can learn from those veterans, you know, you mentioned Nick Foles, Andy Dalton. You know, they've even said that Andy Dalton was the starter a month ago. So for them to then draft a quarterback and say, hey, this is the guy of the future, you obviously want Dalton to teach him things.
I have felt all along like the best situation for Justin Fields would be one where he doesn't have to play right away. It's part of the reason why I liked the fit in San Francisco, because I don't think the 49ers were going to get rid of Garoppolo, and I thought Fields could have been mentored under him. I hadn't really necessarily considered Justin becoming a Chicago Bear, but you know, my initial reactions are I like his situation in the quarterback room. Obviously, that coaching staff is used to working with a young quarterback. They've since moved on from Trubisky. Not sure that they've got great weapons around him. I think they're okay. I think they could upgrade on offense, frankly. I think it's part of the reason why they went 8-8 last year. You know, Allen Robinson obviously coming off another good season. He had 6 touchdowns. He had nearly 1,300 receiving yards. You got a guy that can stretch the field a little bit in Darnell Mooney. David Montgomery is a solid running back, but they play in a tough division. And I realize Detroit's not a great team right now, but Green Bay is very, very good, even though there's all this turmoil all of a sudden with Aaron Rodgers. The Vikings are still a solid football team. So, you know, I don't think there's a ton of pressure on Justin necessarily, because I think he's got the ability to be in Chicago for a few years, although there might be pressure on the organization to try to, you know, win sooner than later here.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head when it comes to the type of situation that he was going to come into, that you would want him to find success in the future. And it was, you know, San Francisco with an established veteran starter where you can learn. New England was another team that was mentioned heavily with him, especially once he started to slip. You kind of expected the Patriots to jump up into 8, 9, 10, and then take him. So you didn't really see the Bears as much sitting at 20 and then coming up because of the capital that they had to give up to get him. But at the same time, like you said, there's not a lot of weapons that are surrounding him. So maybe that might also help with his development too. You know, kind of get beat up a little bit, learn, you know, the ins and outs, and then once, you know, you see people or other people see him and what he can bring to the table, then they're going to want to come and play with him.
I mean, he's obviously got all the tools in the world. We've talked about this ad nauseum, not just last season, but certainly the last couple months after the national championship loss. You know, he's got the accuracy. He's got the big arm downfield. He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. There's a reason why, you know, you trade up to get a guy like this for sure. I think it's a great spot for Justin. And, you know, he's going to be playing in the heart of Big Ten country, which I think is cool. You know, the cold weather is not going to bother him at all, right? I mean, that's not unfamiliar. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I think this could be a really good fit for him. I hope the Bears, for Justin's sake, I hope they address, you know, some of the skill positions on offense to try to kind of bolster the talent around him, because I think they're okay, but I don't think the Bears right now are necessarily a huge playoff threatening type team. And I'm not surprised that Chicago took a quarterback, whether it was Fields or not, because I don't think that they're under the impression that Foles or Dalton is a long-term solution at this point. And Andy
Well,
Dalton's an 11-year pro.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, especially because they addressed the quarterback position or tried to in free agency with Dalton. And they made the playoffs last year too. So they feel as if they're close. And if Justin can come in and win that job, you've seen it with other teams too, where they sign a veteran in the offseason, expect him to play, expect him to be the guy, let the rookie learn the ropes, hold the clipboard for a year and then take over. And sometimes those players are just too talented. They come in right away and you have to play them. And watching Justin for the last 2 years, I think that's possibly something that happens.
I think this is a good fit for Justin Fields. As a Buckeye fan, I'd be curious. I hope you'll react with us on our social media accounts and let us know how you feel about this. But personally, I'm obviously happy for him, but I'm happy because I think this is a good situation. I think we're probably going to finally eventually be able to end this crazy stretch of Ohio State quarterbacks that have not succeeded in the NFL. I think this is a spot where Fields can have a good career. So I'm happy for him for sure.
I think that's something that, is a little bit different. With Dwayne Haskins 2 years ago, everybody saw Washington and said, that's where he's from. This is just going to be a natural thing that fits. And maybe we didn't know that there was more to it than that, it didn't work out. And I think that the unexpectedness of it, with Justin going to a team that nobody expected him to even last all the way to 20, where the Bears were originally picking, might actually pay off, in his favor later on.
We'll find out. We'll have plenty of coverage on Justin and the rest of the Buckeyes here throughout the next couple days during the NFL draft. Certainly, there was no world that existed that Fields was not going to be a first-round NFL pick. Will he have any former teammates picked in the first round? I guess we'll find out as the night progresses. We've heard Pete Werner's name thrown around. Wyatt Davis might be a little bit of a stretch. Shaun Wade and Baron Browning, the only others that could potentially sneak into the back end of the first round, but we'll certainly cover it along the way here on Buckeyes Now. For Andrew Lind, I'm Brendan Gulick. Justin Fields is a Chicago Bear, the 11th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft.